Welcome everybody here to your City Hall. And I especially want to thank the community leaders that are here, the political leaders who are here, who, whenever any one of us has ever come from a community under attack, we have shown that Los Angeles has one of the strongest tapestries anywhere in the world, a joint shield that brings communities together across geography and age and religion and ethnicity and race to say that we are all Angelenos, and that an attack on any one of us is an attack on all of us. Thank you to the faith leaders who do that in not just bad times, but good times, to make sure that we have that fabric strengthened every single day. Thank you to our law enforcement officials who you see across multiple agencies here who work as a single team. Thank you to our elected officials as well. And thank you everybody for your humanity, for your compassion and your partnership. Los Angeles, look at the men and women who are standing together here today. It is a testament to who we are. In Spanish, we say, dime con quién andas y te diré quién eres. Tell me who you walk with and I will tell you who you are. This is who we are. This is what we represent. And this is what it means to be a city of belonging, not a city of hate. This is a place where we come together in moments of pain and crisis and of celebration. A place where we walk shoulder to shoulder for safety of all our communities and when any individual community is under threat. And we rally around shared principles. We show the world that we settle differences of opinions not with blows and not with weapons, but with discussion and engagement and even friendship. This is a moment to make clear that Los Angeles stands against anti-Semitism. We stand against attacks on Jewish Angelenos. We stand against the ideas that Jews should be singled out and attacked because of who they are. And it mirrors what we have done too many times together when we've stood up against Islamophobia or racism, against hate directed towards our LGBTQ community, anybody, for who they are, what they look like, who they love, or how they worship God. We stand united when it's tough, but especially when it's tough, because we know this is a time not for division, but of mutual understanding, a time to reaffirm our values and to, again, remind us of who we are. This is a time, of course, the right to assemble peacefully, to protest righteously, the right to come together and to speak our minds passionately, the right to rally and to hear our voices heard forcefully, which we've seen in this past year as strong as any year I can remember. But here in Los Angeles, here in America, these rights are sacrosanct, and those rights also depend on our freedom to be able to walk in our neighborhoods, to be able to dine in our city's restaurants, and we know that violence is never the answer. And more than that, because I was asked by a reporter, isn't this like the match that can spark a flame? Nothing puts that flame out more than justice, and bringing to justice swiftly and strongly anybody who would break that sacred unity between all of us. Violence foments fears in spaces where we need hope. It takes the spotlight away from the issues that we need to confront, about questions of conflict and security, about the Middle East. Here in these council chambers, I remember once it was the consuls general of Egypt and Israel. One of them was leaving, and they were there together with their wives. They were both men. And they were side by side in the front row of our city council, one sorry to see the other leave. You see, things here in Los Angeles are possible in places and spaces around the world where sometimes that's too painful. We model what unity, we model what engagement, we model what cross-sectoral engagement looks like. Let's be clear, though, we condemn as a city and as Americans the organized anti-Semitic attack in Beverly Grove on Tuesday night and on Monday night as well. And we will meet those incidents with the full force of the law. And our police department, together with our sheriff's department, our FBI, and other partners, is rightly investigating this assault as a hate crime. A lot of people have said, how's that going? And as I think you all know, when there's criminal investigations and you'll hear, when we don't share, it's usually a sign that we're making progress. When we hit a wall, we'll ask for rewards. We'll say we need more tips. And I have a high level of confidence of not only the investigatory team and of all of the participating agencies, but that we will bring people to justice. And it will send a message that this sort of discrimination, these sorts of attacks, this bigotry, these chilling images will not be tolerated in Los Angeles and should not be tolerated anywhere. And Jewish Angelenos, like everyone who calls the city home, should always feel safe. Right now, today, we hear some hopeful signs as well about a ceasefire in Israel and Gaza. And we should all hold out hope and pray that peace comes. We are all pained. It is a painful moment to be Jewish, a painful moment to be Muslim and Palestinian. It is a painful moment, and we have to acknowledge that. And only through the cessation of violence, whether it's here or other places, can we see progress. And we understand in the midst of that passions run high. That's okay. That's human. What is not okay is to take that out on innocent people, on groups of folks who are dying because of who they are, to try to target and chase people down because of their religion or what you think they look like. Our hearts break and our souls are crushed enough by the suffering that we've seen in this past year and that we see in the Middle East. And all of us pray for peace and pray now. But the devaluing of human lives is something we cannot happen in Los Angeles. The situation weighs heavily on us, and we will respect not only our safety, but we will continue to go further than that. Not just bring people to justice, but engage in discussions of justice, open lines of dialogue, treat one another with dignity and with civility, promote a vision of justice and human rights and coexistence for Jews and Muslims, something many of us in both communities have been working on long, long before this week, and evidence which is shown behind us. We have to remember the words of Abraham Lincoln's first inaugural. Though passion may have strained, it must not break our bonds of affection, because that's what we have here in LA. We've stood in front of the Islamic Center when there's been attacks on mosques, the Sikh temple when there's been attacks against our Sikhs, when churches have been firebombed here. We have always stood together. And I just want to say, as a Jewish Angeleno, thank you to my Muslim and Christian and other co-religionist brothers and sisters who are here alongside us. It's incredibly moving to me. When Abraham Lincoln said those words, his was a cry for empathy at one of the most terrifying stretches of our nation's history. But his message is just as clear today, that our debates cannot turn into hatred. Our present passions cannot and must not break our bonds of friendship. So I'll end where I started. This is a city of belonging, not a city of hate. And it is a city of justice, and we will bring folks to justice. With that, I'd like to ask Deputy Chief Choi to come forward, who's Chief of Staff to Chief Moore, who is out of town but being represented by him, and really represents an amazing police department that has put the full resources, not just into the investigation, but the patrols to reassure the Beverly Grove community that you can, will, and must be safe in your community. Chief Choi?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All right, so on behalf of the Chief of Police, Michael Moore, I'd like to thank the mayor, the elected officials, our law enforcement partners, and especially our community members for being here today in support of sending this message out to the city and county of Los Angeles. This city has a unique and culturally diverse population. Its residents are from every culture, every background, every race, every religion. And this diversity gives us the opportunity to learn about each other and appreciate our differences and also recognize our similarities, and that is that we are all from the human race. We are here today to acknowledge recent demonstrations which occurred in West Los Angeles at the federal building and at the Israeli consulate. Thousands of people gathered. They expressed their First Amendment rights. And we're thankful that by and large, these demonstrations were peaceful and organized. Unfortunately, as the mayor indicated, we had a couple incidents that weren't such. So these were individual groups. An incident occurred on Monday night as well as Tuesday night, and they occurred in the Fairfax district. When we looked at these incidents, we deemed these to be criminal in nature and to be motivated by hatred, and we are treating them as hate crimes. I want to be clear that the LAPD and the city of Los Angeles has a zero tolerance policy for hate incidents and hate crimes. We believe that these two incidents are related by some evidence that's available. But as the mayor mentioned, because we're at a critical point in these investigations, at this point, we're not going to share any more detail, but I promise as we are able to, we will share more information about these cases with you guys and the public. We do ask that anyone that has information on the above related crimes call tip line at 213-922-8230 or email Wilshire detectives at wilshiremac, M-A-C, at lapd.online. Hate crimes disrupt community order. They hurt our neighborhoods. They hurt individuals, and they can't be tolerated. The only way to conquer hate is to have everyone involved, actively involved in suppressing and eliminating hate, and that involves all of you. We encourage anyone who's been a victim of a hate crime or hate incident to report it. One of our huge challenges is just having those incidents reported. I want you to know that the LAPD and the City of Los Angeles takes these incidents very seriously. We investigate things to the level of a homicide. And we're committed to ensuring that our communities feel safe when they're reporting these incidents, that they're not going to be retaliated against, and that we can properly investigate them to serve justice. I also want to make it clear that we support our community groups, our community programs, our clergy with their programs, with their projects on cultural diversity, human relations, and conflict resolution to make sure that we continue to create an environment of safety for this city, that we work together as law enforcement and our community and politicians, because we're all on the same team in this. I think we all agree that we have a zero tolerance for hate crimes and hate incidents, and thank you all for being here. And next, I think we're going to go to City Attorney Mike Fear for comments.
Thank you, Chief Choi. It seemed, hasn't it, that the world is boiling over. In LA, the most diverse of places, there has been hate that has been erupting from beneath our feet. We've seen it against our Asian American neighbors, our Muslim American neighbors, members of the LGBTQ community, Latinos, others. That hate that is emerging from just below us. And now, of course, we are again confronting hate that has been targeting members of the Jewish community. We know that conflict can light a fuse, and we know there are strong views about the fighting in the Middle East. But I want to be extremely clear. The fact that there is violence in the Middle East, it provides absolutely no excuse for violence on the streets of Los Angeles. We often talk about tolerance here, but there can't be any tolerance for hate crime. The crimes that we've seen in recent days were directed to members of the Jewish community, but let me be clear about hate crime. Hate crime doesn't merely target its direct victims. Hate crime is designed to intimidate a community. Hate crime is designed to instill fear in a community. And we, all of us here, are standing in a united way to say we will not be intimidated. We will not succumb to fear. We are standing here to take action. And when it comes to taking action, you certainly have the commitment of me and my office. The thugs who perpetrated these crimes, and let's call them what they were, the thugs who perpetrated these crimes will be brought to justice. And as for my office will prosecute any appropriate hate crime that is referred to our office. We're going to continue to work closely with our partners at LAPD to train them in the field to assure that we can get cases that are properly worked up so we can aggressively prosecute those cases. We're going to continue to direct victims to our office's Victims Assistance Program so they can receive compassionate and needed services. And as you can see today, we, all of us here, are committed to sending the single, unequivocal message that we're standing together and that we unanimously condemn hate crimes here. And by the way, we need to continue to emphasize the importance of reporting. You can't investigate, let alone prosecute a hate crime if it's not reported in the first place. We stood with our Asian American community neighbors to make that point very clear in communities where often people are reluctant to come forward. Well, recent surveys show that well over half of members of the Jewish community in the United States feel they've been targeted for anti-Semitism. All our communities, every member, needs to feel they are comfortable coming forward to those of us who can investigate and prosecute hate crimes, because it isn't just the incident that pertained to you that's on the line. If that perpetrator continues without being held accountable, it's going to happen again to somebody else. And we are so much in this together. We are not going to stand by in the face of hate. We are here collectively to say, whoever is the target of hate, and in this case it is members of the Jewish community, we, irrespective of race or ethnicity or religion or sexual orientation, we are standing together to say, if it is happening to a member of the Jewish community, it is happening to all of us, as we have said so many times in recent years. Thanks very much.
I want to thank somebody who co-convened a meeting with multi-faith leaders and leaders in the Jewish community with me yesterday, and who's been out there from the very beginning of this in his own district and in his own neighborhood as well. I want to thank you for your leadership and introduce our Councilmember Paul Koretz.
Well, thank you, Mayor Garcetti, and thank you for calling this press conference today. I want to start by strongly condemning the attacks against the Jewish community that we've seen take place over the past 2 days. 2 nights ago, members of a caravan of pro-Palestinian protesters targeted innocent Jewish diners in a vicious attack while they were sitting down unsuspectedly outside a restaurant. And a separate attempt that took place where 2 drivers tried to run over a Jewish man who had to flee for his life. Both incidents were captured on video. I am outraged. Both these were anti-Semitic hate crimes, and they are unconscionable. Today we're gathered as elected leaders, law enforcement, and religious leaders to continue the critical conversation as to what we must do to secure our streets and our neighborhoods as we try to heal. Recently, we've seen a significant uptick of hate crimes against our Asian Pacific residents and against a variety of races and religions here in Los Angeles. We must be united to fight hate. I want to thank our law enforcement partners, including our friends at the FBI and the Sheriff's Department, and our own LAPD team, beginning with Chief Michael Moore, Assistant Chief B. Germala, Deputy Chief Vito Palazzolo, Captain Shannon Paulson, Captain John Tom, as well as all those who wear the uniform and badge. We're so grateful to them for their good work. These violent attacks will not go unchecked. We will do everything necessary to bring these criminals to justice and to restore order on our city streets. On the evening after the incident at Sushi Fumi, after being briefed at Wilshire Division, I visited the restaurant where the attack took place, and I met with a young man who witnessed the entire tragedy unfold and committed to him and to our community that we will work diligently to deploy more resources into the region and that we will bring justice to the victims who were so brutally beaten as well. I intend to keep my promise to that young man and to the whole community. We are not going to allow for anyone to strike fear into our hearts just because we're Jewish. We are not going to allow the violence in the Middle East to spill out onto the streets of Los Angeles. Everyone is entitled to express their opinion, but never through violence. Pro-Palestinian protesters can't be allowed to viciously assault random people on the street because they happen to look or be Jewish. I've been working closely with our law enforcement partners to assure that the appropriate level of resources are committed to our security efforts. And in conversations with the Chief of Police, Michael Moore, I received commitments to enhance our posture and our resources throughout the impacted corridors. We will investigate these incidents, we will identify the perpetrators, and we will bring them to justice. We will also protect our residents from further violence. We are not going to allow this continue to happen to my constituents in Council District 5, not on my watch. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Member. I'm going to ask our City Controller, Ron Galperin, to come forward. We've got 6 other speakers, so I know it's nice after I went first to say this, but if everybody could keep their remarks succinct, because I know there's going to be questions from the press as well. So Controller Ron Galperin, and then we'll hear from the FBI Assistant Director in Charge, Christy Johnson.
Good afternoon. This year, I found myself, along with so many others, rallying for Black lives, against Asian hate, for recognizing the genocide of Armenians historically, for attacks on the LGBTQ community and those who are trans. We've seen Sikhs and Muslims targeted, immigrants targeted. There always seems to be another. And then here we are again, as we have been in City Hall in previous years, to condemn anti-Semitism, which has unfortunately been growing in our world, in our nation, and in our city. As the son and grandson of Holocaust survivors, I had hoped that we would not have to be here today, that lessons of the past might actually have been learned, that we might finally learn that we are all part of the very same human family. But alas, here we are again, and we proclaim that there is no place for hate in this city, that there is no place for anti-Semitism in this city, that many millennia old hatred of Jews. And we are here to unequivocally condemn the recent attacks, the anti-Semitic attacks, and to say no more. People should never be targeted for who they are, for what they look like, for their religion, for where they belong to, for their identity. Certainly not in Los Angeles. And no matter what is happening anywhere else in the world and in the Middle East, we hope and we pray for peace. We're heartened by news just a couple of hours ago of a ceasefire. But no matter what, there is no room for violence in the city of Los Angeles, no room for anti-Semitism. And so this is a wake-up call, and we are at our best when we come together. And thank you so much to everybody who is here, and to our law enforcement officials, and to our elected officials, and to so many others for standing up together as we do today. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Christy Johnson. I'm the Assistant Director in charge of the FBI Los Angeles Field Office. I want to thank the mayor and all of our law enforcement partners here today, the sheriff, the police department, and all of the community members. I'm here to remind you that we are here to be part of what the mayor mentioned as that joint shield. We are here to make sure that every possible incidence of hate crime is fully investigated and that the perpetrators are fully pursued. The FBI makes it a priority to investigate allegations of civil rights violations, and again, we will pursue the offenders. We regularly work with our partners on the Los Angeles Hate Crimes Task Force while we investigate allegations of crime motivated by racial bias and all forms of hate. We're aware of various controversies we face in this country and the passions felt on all sides. The FBI does not pursue individuals who are peacefully exercising their First Amendment protected rights through assembly or protest. These rights are enshrined in the Constitution and the very document that we took the oath to protect. However, those who wish to disrupt those rights by committing acts of violence are to be held accountable. We focus on violence and property destruction so that those exercising free speech can do so uninterrupted. When violence erupts, at an otherwise peaceful protest or an otherwise peaceful gathering of any kind, no one wins. Legitimate voices can't be heard, people can't live freely, and those committing the crime may go to jail. Everyone loses. We encourage anyone who believes that they have been the victim of a hate crime to report it to us, to report it to the FBI, to report it to the police department, to report it to the sheriff's office. The public serves as our eyes and ears, so please report suspected criminal activity to us. Thank you again to my partners with me here today from the community, from law enforcement, and of course the mayor. And to, of course, all the law enforcement professionals they represent who keep us safe every day. Thank you.
Thank you. And for those who don't know, it always sounds like she's the assistant director of the office, that she's the assistant director of the FBI in charge of the office in Los Angeles. So I just want everybody to know we appreciate at the highest levels your engagement and involvement. Next, I'd like to ask our Los Angeles County Sheriff, who works just catty corner across the street, and the Sheriff's Department's been critical in this investigation and in assistance, and we're very grateful for that, Sheriff Villanueva. Please welcome Alex Villanueva.
Thank you, Eric. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank all of our civic leaders behind me, our religious leaders, and our law enforcement partners. We have a lot of work to do ahead of us, and we've achieved a lot in the past. And we had a hate crime summit just yesterday at the Sheriff's Academy, and one of the topics, one is the hate crimes. The most common one is by race. The second is by religion, and the third is by sexual orientation. Those are the three most common ones that we're seeing in that order. And we've seen examples of that spread throughout the news. Just recently now with Fairfax. Just today we announced the arrest of an individual who attacked a rideshare driver, an elderly Asian man, and severely injured him. And he was brought to justice. And now he's facing some serious charges. That happened in South El Monte. So unfortunately, hate is alive and well in Los Angeles County as it is throughout the world. We need to do our best to bring it to an end. And I can promise you two things. We're going to move every resource we have, and those who are responsible, we will find you. And number two, you will be held accountable. And last but not least, report also hate incidents. I want to be very practical about this. A hate incident that goes unreported down the road becomes a hate crime that we're trying to figure out who it is. So either see something, say something, is something wrong, could be a racial epithet. Third, it could be something that in print, on social media. Report the matter, and we'll investigate it further. And we have a hate crime task force that brings all of our partners together, and we'll solve it. If it rises to level of crime, or if not, it's just something we're going to document, and down the road, trust me, that always comes true. We'll need that information. So thank you.
Thanks very much. The head of our Los Angeles Civil and Human Rights and Equity Department is none other than Capri Maddox, who, for the first time, we have a department exclusively focused on civil rights violations, and that's encompassed our Human Relations Commission, among other things. And we thank you for the work that you're doing. This isn't just a criminal justice issue, it's a human relations issue as well. So, Capri Maddox.
Thank you, Mayor Garcetti, for leading this press conference, and to all of the leaders that are standing here today, particularly all our elected officials and members of the community, as well as our folks from law enforcement. We really appreciate the support and the solidarity that we see here today. As the mayor mentioned, I am the executive director of the Civil Human Rights and Equity Department, and I think it's important to know that we also have the Human Relations Department, that the Human Relations Commission that's a part of our department, and in that space we fight hate. And as many speakers have said, hate is hate is hate. We need to combat it. There is no excuse for hate. I don't care what's going on anywhere in the world. I don't care what a former president said. There is no excuse for hate in America, particularly in our city of Los Angeles. And I just wanted to say that those folks that were once protesters lost their title of being protesters when they got out of that car and started beating on people. They became criminals, and we need to be clear about that, about this point. I want to also commend the members of the Islamic community that called and stood up. My phone was blowing up yesterday with so many calls from our Islamic leaders saying, what can we do to stop this? I really appreciate the fact that in our department we have a few commissions, and in those commissions we have members of the Jewish community, members of the Muslim community. Jay Sanderson, for example, the head of the Jewish Federation, is a part of our department as a commissioner, as is Aziza Hassan, who leads New Ground. I think it is important to know that we are one LA. We are better than this, Los Angeles. And I think it's important to mention that the Civil and Human Rights and Equity Department will be standing up dialogues to make sure that we reach out to our brothers and sisters that are hurting and to make sure that we heal as one here in Los Angeles. If you are a victim of hate, you must report it. Please report it. You can call LAPD or you can call 211 and you can find a culturally competent person on the other end of the line to provide services and outreach assistance to you. I think it's very important for us to remember we are home to a number of communities that have been othered. As an African American, I know what it feels like to be othered. I've been at press conferences where people have been standing up for my community in many ways. And so, and we've also, unfortunately, have been dealing with API hate against our Asian brothers and sisters. Those numbers have gone up in the last year, 114%, according to LAPD records. But the thing is that we want to be clear that this is not anything new. The numbers continue to rise and it must stop. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired of hate in our city. We need to stand together. Los Angeles is one of the most diverse cities in the entire world. We are a city of belonging and we are better than this. Thank you.
Thank you. Our last three speakers represent our community in its at least in this case, the three Abrahamic faiths. As I said, we stand together so often with one another, and I want to thank first old friend and somebody who has stood up and educated us all about the impact of hate for many years. He has been somebody who, through the Simon Wiesenthal Center, has shown us the consequences of when hate goes too far. I'd like to ask Rabbi Abraham Cooper to come forward and speak about the dangers of ignoring intolerance, anti-Semitism, and prejudice. Rabbi?
I'm here today, first and foremost, to give some broader context as to the anger and fear that the Jewish community feels here. We are all, after all, only talking about, as far as we know, 3 incidents. So in the United Kingdom, our sister democracy, between May 8th and 17th, there's been a 500% increase in anti-Semitic incidents. Some of them are up close and personal, the ripping down of the holy mezuzahs from doorposts, caravans driving through Jewish neighborhoods, screaming death to Jews, a rabbi beaten outside a synagogue in Essex, a synagogue in Norwich, kike-free Palestine, violence in the neighbors to the north, Montreal, Toronto, 2 great cities, Germany, protesters burn Israeli flags, curse Jews. In Dusseldorf, they set fire to a memorial to a synagogue that was set on fire on Kristallnacht in 1938 by the Nazis. In Austria, 2,500 protesters screamed out, "Jews remember Keber, the army of Muhammad is returning." Turkey, no one less than Erdogan, who said that Jews are only satisfied sucking blood. So here we are in Los Angeles, where until now, if I wanted to talk about Jews being singled out, I'd bring you to the Museum of Tolerance. Many of you have been there. That's seen at a Cafe Kranzler, where you see the Jews are picked out and selected and feel uneasy. If I wanted to show you a picture of a Hasidic Jew literally running for his life from an organized mob of Nazis, you would have to go to Section 25, where the victims themselves spoke out. But here we are in Los Angeles, where on Monday night during our Shavuot festival, a Jew, Hasidic Jew, a father of 6, who had to literally run for his life from an organized mob, who had the courage to be in huge SUVs pursuing him. This cannot stand. We cannot allow the importing of the Hamas war to our beloved city. LA is the second city of every national and ethnic group in the world. So what are the action items? Number one, and I'm very moved by the eloquence of the mayor and his commitment, as well as all the other elected officials. And I feel, the Jewish community feels that we have great leadership in Chief Moore and Sheriff Villanueva. But I have to be honest and tell you straight, our community demands full funding for the LAPD. It is unacceptable that in 2021, communities across LA have to hire private security firms, armed security guards in order to walk safely in our own neighborhood streets. That cannot be. We appreciate the commitment, and we know that perpetrators will be caught. We also know that there are important people in the food chain of justice in Los Angeles who are absent today, who fought against Paul Koretz, who forced the fact that hate crimes would be prosecuted by the district attorney's office. He's not here, and we don't have any confidence in him. The political leaders, the social influencers, the media, we very much appreciate that you're all calling out the attacks for what they were, attacks by latter-day Nazis. Faith leaders, from progressive to right-wing, the mayor, previous mayors, the chief, previous chiefs, you have a group of faith leaders behind me, second to none. They not only talk, they walk the walk. We are friends, we are colleagues, we are there for each other. I have a message also for the Jews of Los Angeles. This is my prayer shawl. We have other rabbis here. It's almost a part of your body because every morning when you pray, before you pray, you put on the prayer shawl. Today, I'm putting on the prayer shawl for three reasons. One, I will shortly read with you a Psalm of David that is considered holy by the Abrahamic faiths. Number two, I want to send a message to those criminals who think they can intimidate our community. So in case you didn't figure out with my yarmulke, here is my talit, my prayer shawl. And the Jewish community has some responsibilities here as well. So as a measure of our confidence in our city fathers and mothers, and in our LAPD and Sheriff's Department, the Simon Wiesenthal Center is urging you this Shabbat, first of all, go to synagogue with your families, with your toddlers. Secondly, when the service is over, do not remove your talit. Wear it all the way home. The reason for that is that we know that 99.9% of our neighbors are in solidarity with the Jewish community right now. Wear the talit in public with pride. And I have every confidence that the LAPD and the Sheriff's Department will have our back. Finally, we do have faith leaders, and I am a rabbi. So I picked a short one, don't worry. A psalm of David, which I will read in English. It's Psalm 15. And this is an instruction to parents, to teachers, to mentors. What are we supposed to tell our kids? What are the values that we should be pushing forward? Just listen to David's words. A Psalm of David, Hashem, who may sojourn in your tent? Who may dwell on your holy mountain? One who walks in perfect innocence and does what is right and speaks the truth from his heart, who has no slander on his tongue, who has done his fellow no evil, nor cast disgrace upon his close one, in whose eyes a contemptible person is repulsive, but who honors those who fear the Lord, who can swear to his detriment without retracting, who lends not his money on interest, nor takes a bribe against the innocent. The doer of these shall not falter forever. Amen.
Thank you, Rabbi. Now representing the Muslim community in the Islamic Center of Southern California, a leader and an organization that preaches understanding and empathy, the core tenets of one of the world's great faiths. It's my pleasure to introduce an old friend as well, Hadab Tarifi.
In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful, Assalamu alaikum. May God's peace and blessings be upon each and every one of you. Hate and violence of any and all sorts should be condemned, whether on the streets of Los Angeles, in Jerusalem, or Gaza. The Islamic Center of Southern California unequivocally condemns the attacks that took place by individuals in a vehicle waving the Palestinian flag and provoking and instigating attacks in a predominantly Jewish part of Los Angeles. I know how it feels to be alone, calling for peace and justice for your people. For a whole month, Palestinian Muslim worshippers were attacked and not allowed access to Al-Aqsa Mosque during Ramadan, the holiest month of Muslims. Palestinian Christians were prevented from accessing the church in Jerusalem for the Holy Fire ceremony. I was hoping to hear the same condemnation from the city leadership and my fellow interfaith leaders. When I heard about the attack on fellow Jewish Angelenos, I was outraged. I, as a Palestinian, born in Gaza, who advocates for the freedom and rights of my peoples, I say, violence against Jewish bystanders on the streets of Los Angeles is not acceptable. It doesn't further the Palestinian cause or any cause. In the Quran, Surah Fussilat, number 41, verse 34, God Almighty says, وَلَا تَسْتَوِي الْحَسَنَةُ وَلَا السَّيِّئَةُ ادفع بالتي هي أحسن فإذا الذي بينك وبينه عداوة كأنه ولي حميم. And not equal are the good deeds and the bad. Repel evil with deed which is better. And thereupon, the one whom between you and him is enmity will become as though was a devoted friend. God speaks the truth. Everyone has a right to life, liberty, and security, whether on the streets of Los Angeles or Jerusalem, Gaza, and every corner of the world. While human rights cannot be taken away, it can still be degraded by government or individual acts that aim at the destructions of these rights. Hate is as contagious as COVID, and it is as deadly as COVID. Just as it will take a global effort to eradicate COVID, it will require a global effort to eradicate hate and instill peace and justice. As I stand here before you today, denouncing the hate and violence aimed at Angelenos, Jewish and others, I call upon our city leaders and my fellow interfaith leaders to denounce hate and violence in every shape and form, in every corner of the world, and to uphold the human rights as stated in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and as God Almighty has ordained in all the scriptures and holy books that we all believe in and we uphold. We, faith leaders, are the peacemakers. Let us all commit to work for peace in Los Angeles and everywhere else in the world. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your words as well. Finally, and thank you for all your patience. It's critical that I think you see the unity of this community, even where we disagree, that we're unified here. I'd like to finally ask John Cager, who is also a longtime friend. He is the head of the Southern California Interreligious Faith Council, who dedicates every day to building bridges of interfaith connection. John?
John Cager, C-A-G-E-R. Los Angeles represents that ideal that Josiah Royce came up with of the beloved community. And if you love Los Angeles, love Jewish Angelenos. If you love Los Angeles, love Muslim Angelenos. If you love Los Angeles, love Catholic Angelenos, Christian Angelenos, Hindu Angelenos, Buddhist Angelenos, Baha'i Angelenos, and Angelenos of all creeds, colors, ethnicities, and faiths. God, the Creator, has blessed us with the most beautiful city in the world. And if there is a city of angels, and if we live in the city of angels, then we should all believe and hope for that day when the Spirit of God's love falls on the beloved community and pushes out racism, pushes out hatred, pushes out ethnic strife, because God made all of us, and God made all of us to love all of us and not to hate all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I'll speak for the electeds when I say short speeches win elections, so I'm voting for you. I'm happy to answer any questions. Yes. Sure.
Okay. I'm going to ask Assistant Chief Gamala to talk about the limited investigations.
No worries.
She oversees the Office of Operations.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. I will be very brief. I heard part of your question, and you were talking about hate crimes against anti-Semitic hate crimes within the Jewish community. Yes. Yes. So all of the partners here behind me from all of the law enforcement agencies represented here today, and some, quite frankly, who are not here today because they're actively working this investigation, are involved. When we are bringing the entire breadth and strength of law enforcement to this issue, I want to be very clear here, we mean it. No stone will be unturned. No corner will be unseen, and you have our full commitment. And I also want to say, and we all talk about agencies, but the men and women of patrol, the men and women of detectives, geographic area detectives, as well as specialized detectives, are committing themselves 24/7. I'm getting calls at 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., not only from leadership, but from those who are out there on the streets to bring justice to these issues that we have discussed today. And we will be unrelenting, make no mistake about it, as we proceed. I don't care if it's today, tomorrow, a year from now, so that hate has no safe haven in the city of Los Angeles. I want to be very, very clear. If you remember nothing else from my words today, please remember that.
In terms of the stats, I don't know that we break
Yes.
out
Yeah.
Israeli.
Do you want to go ahead, Dom?
I think we
Please
do
go ahead.
Muslim and Jewish, right?
Yes.
And then I'll go ahead and finish.
Okay, real quick on the stats. So this is year to date, January 1st through April 30th. We do not have to date today available for you. But overall, our hate crimes from January 1st to April 30th, we had an 80% increase. That's plus 79 crimes. The majority of that increase comes from race-related bias, and then it follows religion, then sexual orientation, just like the sheriff said. That's the same pattern in the city as it is in the county. As it relates to hate incidents, we saw a 118% increase in the same time period. That's 66 incidents additional year over year. And again, same categories. We saw a significant increase in race bias. We saw then religion, and then we saw sexual orientation. So those are our hate statistics. I know, so for hate incidents, we saw anti-Jewish incidents increase 12 last year versus 17 this year. Anti-Muslim incidents were 0 and 0. But these numbers don't reflect, and you all know what's going on out there in the communities. That's why it's so important that all of us spread this message that anytime you're involved in an incident, and especially a crime, that you report it to law enforcement. If we don't know what happened, we can't investigate it, we can't look at the trends, we can't come up with a strategy to combat it. We ask for all your help in reporting these incidents and crimes as they occur.
Mr. Johnson's going to answer the FBI question real quick, too, and then we'll clarify it.
Sure. Thank you very much. Yes, of course, the FBI is looking at these facts together with the LA Police Department. As we would with anything that looks and sounds anything like the events that have occurred, and we will be very thorough in reviewing all of the information and conducting a thorough investigation.
I'm sorry, it was tough to hear you. Does anybody want to run down the description of Monday and Tuesday of what the incidents were?
Yes, on Monday we had a Jewish individual who was being pursued by several vehicles on the 400 block of North La Brea Avenue. That was the incident for Monday. On Tuesday, the 300 block of North La Cienega, at a local restaurant with outdoor dining, a similar caravan of cars pulled up alongside the roadside diners, began harassing them verbally, and then it culminated into physical assaults. So those are the two incidents we are actively investigating at this time. Thank you. Pardon me? Yes, we did have injuries. Thank goodness. On Monday we did not. On Tuesday we did, and the people are recuperating from them. Thank you. We are still investigating. We're keeping all options open. Again, we don't want to be conclusatory here, but we are actively investigating both and the possibility that they could be. There is always a possibility, yes.
No, I'm just going to do this. I'll be doing a press conference tomorrow. Happy to do it then. Other questions of this? Yes. Sí. Esta tragedia en la área de Fairfax, estos ataques contra la comunidad judía, son un ataque contra todas las comunidades. En el pasado fue los inmigrantes, los latinos, nuestros afroamericanos, personas de cualquier comunidad, asiático y otros. Y en este momento es muy importante para todos nosotros juntos hablar muy, muy duro, con una voz muy poderosa. Decir, este no es aceptable en la ciudad de Los Ángeles y traeremos estos criminales a justicia. El crimen de odio es muy serio. Es peor de un crimen sin el odio. Y juntos hay, desafortunadamente por estas personas, estos criminales, hay consecuencias más altas cuando los dos son juntos. Sí, no, la comunidad indocumentada, no tengan miedo. Estamos aquí a proteger todos los angelinos, inmigrantes, sin o con papeles, comunidades asiáticos, afroamericanos, latinos, blancos, comunidades cristianos, musulmanos y judías también. Somos angelinos, primero. No son diferentes comunidades solo, pero una comunidad de esta ciudad.
Let me just add one other point as we consider what's going on today. It has to do with social media, and clearly a double-edged sword. On the one hand, we would not have the evidence of those horrible events if not for the iPhone. On the other hand, and the main reason we're out here today from the Jewish community, everyone in LA could do everything right, but the viral nature of social media, TikTok, Twitter especially, as soon as these incidents take place, they go viral from Melbourne to San Diego and every place in between. So we're not in control of everything. We do need young people who see this to say something, and we need the adults in their lives, teachers, perhaps clergy, and especially parents, to sit down with the kids and explain to them the reality of what happens when you go viral with hate.